On June 29, 2002, the city of Nanaimo, British Columbia, pulsed with its usual weekend energy. Bars and nightclubs along the downtown strip drew in young people eager to stretch the limits of summer freedom. Among them was Lisa Marie Young, a 21-year-old woman whose presence stood out even in a crowded room. Petite in stature but unmistakable in spirit, she had the sort of smile that instantly warmed a space. Friends and family remembered her not only for her charm, but also for her ambition. She spoke often of her plans, returning to school, pursuing a career, and building a future beyond the coastal city where she had been raised. Lisa was the kind of daughter parents took pride in. She phoned home regularly, kept close ties with relatives, and balanced her independence with loyalty to the people she loved. She was also deeply connected to her indigenous heritage, a part of her identity that grounded her in a world that often overlooked women like her. At just 21, she was poised between youth and adulthood, her future full of possibilities. That Saturday night was meant to be nothing more than a celebration. One of Lisa's friends was having a birthday, and their small circle had made plans to enjoy the evening together. They began with a gathering at a local home, sharing drinks and laughter before heading into town. For Lisa, it was a familiar rhythm, a night out with people she trusted, in a city she knew well. By the time the group reached the club district in Nanaimo, the mood was high. Music spilled out from doorways, and neon signs cast flickering colors onto the sidewalks. Inside the venues, lights strobed across crowded dance floors, glasses clinked, and voices merged in a chorus of weekend escape. Lisa danced with friends, moved easily through conversations, and seemed entirely at ease. There was nothing in her demeanor to suggest the night would be anything other than routine. But even ordinary nights can pivot on a single detail. In this case, it was the car. Outside the clubs, parked where passersby couldn't miss it, was a red Jaguar, an unusual sight in Nanaimo at the time. Flashy, expensive, and out of place, the car drew attention. Its driver, a man unknown to Lisa's group, offered them a ride after the clubs closed. At first, it seemed harmless, a gesture of convenience at the end of a long night. Lisa and her friends accepted. They piled into the Jaguar, still riding the carefree energy of the evening. None of them could have known that the decision would mark the last time most of them would see Lisa alive. The car wound its way through Nanaimo's quiet streets. At one point, the group stopped for food. Lisa, however, didn't eat. Friends noticed she seemed preoccupied, though they chalked it up to the lateness of the hour. She was tired, perhaps ready to go home. Yet when it came time to leave, the driver didn't drop her back as expected. Instead, he steered the car elsewhere, away from the familiar routes her friends recognized. The moments that followed would become the last verifiable trace of Lisa's movements. Around 4:30 a.m., she phoned one of her friends. Her voice, usually confident, carried a strain of unease. She said she was in the car with the man, that he wasn't letting her leave, and that she felt trapped. It was a call that should have raised alarms, but in that instant, her friends believed it was a temporary problem, a matter of minutes before she returned. After all, they had all been together that same night. It didn't seem possible that Lisa could be in real danger, but the minutes stretched into hours. By the time the sun rose over Nanaimo on June 30th, Lisa Marie Young had vanished. She never returned to her family's home. She didn't call again. For a woman known to keep close contact and who always let people know where she was, the silence was immediate and chilling. The ordinary details of that night, a birthday party, a nightclub, a car ride, would later become the building blocks of a haunting mystery. To those who loved her, it began as confusion. Surely she would walk through the door or call back, or explain where she had gone. But as the day wore on and no word came, the confusion gave way to dread. Lisa's disappearance began not with a dramatic event witnessed by dozens, but with a simple gap in routine. She had left home to celebrate with friends, to dance, to live out the carefree joy of her early 20s. Somewhere between the music of downtown Nanaimo and the silence of dawn, she stepped into a car that would carry her into history as one of Canada's most haunting missing persons cases. The story of Lisa Marie Young does not begin with her disappearance. It begins with her life, full of promise, cut short by the choices of one night. And from that night forward, her name would be carried not only by her family and friends, but also by a broader movement demanding answers for all missing Indigenous women. You're watching Trace of Evil, where we reveal true crimes, unsolved disappearances, and mysteries surrounding crime. Like and subscribe to watch more episodes from our channel. Let's get back into the story of Lisa Marie Young. June 30th, 2002. Nanaimo, a small but bustling city on Vancouver Island, had settled into the long summer evening. The nightlife was alive with the same rhythm it always carried on weekends. Music spilling out of bars, neon signs flickering against the dark, and groups of young people drifting between clubs, pubs, and late-night haunts. For Lisa Marie Young, this night was supposed to be a celebration. She was 21, independent, and standing on the cusp of what she believed would be a bright future. Lisa had always been driven. She had plans to attend art school, and those who knew her described her as ambitious, creative, and kind-hearted. This night out wasn't just another Saturday. It was a chance to unwind before life shifted into the next chapter. Dressed to fit the occasion, she looked vibrant, carrying herself with the kind of quiet confidence that made her presence magnetic. Friends later recalled her smile that night, how she seemed both excited and carefree. The evening began at a downtown nightclub, where Lisa and her friends joined the crowd on the dance floor. The air was thick with bass and laughter, a familiar summer night energy that seemed endless. But somewhere in the crowd, another figure would soon step into Lisa's path, someone who would alter the course of her life forever. Among the groups moving in and out of the club was a man driving a sleek red Jaguar. He was not a familiar face in Nanaimo's small nightlife circles. Striking and noticeably older than Lisa's group of friends, he stood out. The car, especially, drew attention. It was the kind of vehicle that suggested wealth and sophistication, rare in this small coastal city. For a young woman like Lisa, who had grown up in modest circumstances, the presence of such a man was intriguing, if not entirely disarming. As the night carried on, Lisa was introduced to this stranger. Reports later revealed his name. A man in his 30s, with a carefully groomed appearance and an aura of quiet confidence. He wasn't just passing through the nightlife scene, he seemed to be watching it, moving deliberately, almost as though he had a purpose for being there. At some point in the early morning hours, as clubs wound down and people spilled into the streets, Lisa accepted a ride in the red Jaguar. Witnesses recalled seeing her leave with the man, her figure illuminated briefly by streetlights as she stepped into the car. It was around 3 a.m. when she was last seen alive. What made her decision chilling in retrospect was not that she left with someone new. It was that she trusted him. Friends later said Lisa was careful, not someone who would easily place herself in a dangerous situation. But the Jaguar, the man's composed demeanor, and perhaps the excitement of the night created just enough comfort for her to accept. What happened in the hours that followed remains a haunting mystery. Lisa's friends, assuming she had simply gone off to continue the night, didn't think much of her absence at first. But by morning, when Lisa hadn't returned home, alarms set in. Messages and calls went unanswered. For a young woman as connected to her family and friends as Lisa was, silence was uncharacteristic. Within days, the red Jaguar became the focal point of the investigation. Locals recalled seeing the car parked outside clubs, noted how unusual it was for Nanaimo, and whispered about the man behind the wheel. Authorities traced him quickly. He was cooperative, at least on the surface, but his story didn't erase suspicion. He admitted to giving Lisa a ride but claimed he had dropped her off at another location. From that point, he insisted he had no idea what became of her. But the timeline was shaky, and so was his story. The last confirmed sighting of Lisa was in his company. From that moment onward, she seemed to vanish without a trace. No CCTV captured her, no witness placed her at the supposed drop-off, and no physical evidence surfaced to confirm she had made it safely to another destination. As the first week passed, worry gave way to dread. Posters with Lisa's photograph appeared across Nanaimo. Her dark hair, her radiant smile, her youthful features frozen in time. Her family made emotional pleas, and her father, especially, became a public voice in demanding answers. The once vibrant energy of the city's nightlife now carried a chilling undertone. People whispered in bars and cafes, wondering how someone could simply vanish from their streets, from their community. The red Jaguar, now infamous in the investigation, became more than a car. It became a symbol of unanswered questions. Who was this man, really? What did he want with Lisa? And why had her last known moments been tied to his presence? As weeks turned into months, frustration grew. Investigators publicly confirmed Lisa had entered the Jaguar, but no evidence suggested she had ever emerged. Despite searches, interviews, and pressure on the man at the center of suspicion, the trail ran cold. The absence of closure left Lisa's loved ones suspended in a nightmare of uncertainty. The night that began as celebration had ended in silence. A young woman who had been full of plans and promise was now the focus of headlines, police reports, and whispered speculation. And at the heart of it all, the lingering image of a red Jaguar pulling away into the darkness, carrying with it the final terrible mystery of Lisa Marie Young. In the days following Lisa Marie Young's disappearance, the city of Nanaimo shifted from casual concern to an atmosphere of deep unease. This was not the kind of place where people simply vanished, and certainly not a woman as well known and rooted as Lisa. Local authorities launched an investigation, canvassing downtown nightlife spots, interviewing witnesses, and tracing Lisa's last confirmed movements. Every account pointed back to one thing: the red Jaguar. The man behind the wheel had already been identified by police. He was not from Lisa's close social circle, but had connections in Nanaimo's wider community. On paper, he appeared ordinary. Mid-30s, financially stable, outwardly polite. But from the very start, investigators noted troubling inconsistencies in his story. He admitted to giving Lisa a ride, but claimed he had dropped her off at a friend's house. That friend, however, insisted Lisa never arrived. This contradiction was critical. Without corroboration, the man's version of events stood alone, and it placed him in direct control of the last known hours of Lisa's life. Yet, despite the mounting suspicion, police lacked concrete evidence to hold him. There was no body, no signs of struggle, and no physical trace linking him to a crime. In the language of law enforcement, Lisa was missing, but not yet confirmed a victim of foul play. For Lisa's family, the distinction was unbearable. Her father, Don Young, became the face of their search, appearing in local media, pleading for answers, and pushing for police to treat the case with urgency. He believed from the beginning that Lisa had not simply walked away from her life. She was close to her family, she had plans for the future, and she had left behind belongings she would never have abandoned willingly. For him, and for many others, the idea that Lisa had disappeared voluntarily was unthinkable. As weeks turned into months, the red Jaguar grew into something larger than just a detail. It became a haunting symbol. Locals spoke about it in hushed tones, many believing that the car itself was a silent witness to whatever fate Lisa met. Investigators pursued leads surrounding the vehicle and its driver, but without hard evidence, progress stalled. The man continued to insist on his innocence, and though suspicion clung to him, the case remained at a frustrating standstill. Time, however, did not dull the memory of Lisa's disappearance. Each anniversary brought renewed calls for justice. Candlelight vigils were held in Nanaimo, where friends and family gathered to keep her story alive. Posters with her photograph, her youthful smile, her dark eyes, remained taped to walls, bulletin boards, and shop windows, a constant reminder that her absence had not been forgotten. Behind the scenes, investigators quietly explored other avenues. There were whispers of organized crime, rumors of drug connections, and speculation that Lisa might have stumbled into something far larger than a chance encounter with the wrong man. These theories never solidified into evidence, but they painted a picture of a case clouded by secrecy and unanswered questions. Adding to the mystery was the driver of the Jaguar himself. Over time, details of his life raised eyebrows. His presence in Nanaimo's nightlife, his access to an expensive car, and his connections to figures on the fringes of the community fed public suspicion. Yet, each time police revisited him, the lack of physical evidence made charges impossible. For Lisa's family, This legal stalemate was torture. The man who last saw their daughter alive remained free, and their questions remained unanswered. In the years that followed, Lisa's story spread far beyond Vancouver Island. National media outlets covered her case, and missing persons organizations took up her name. Her disappearance became one of the most high-profile, unsolved mysteries in Canada's West Coast history. Online forums buzzed with speculation, dissecting timelines, witness accounts, and the Red Jaguar's ominous role. Theories multiplied, but hard facts remained painfully scarce. Her case also intersected with broader concerns. Indigenous communities in Canada, long plagued by the crisis of missing and murdered women, took Lisa's disappearance as another chilling example of systemic failure. Though Lisa was not Indigenous herself, her story resonated deeply with ongoing struggles for justice, safety, and visibility for women who vanished under suspicious circumstances. Activists pointed to her case as proof that urgency too often gave way to delay, that families were left carrying the weight of unanswered questions for years. Throughout it all, Lisa's family never stopped searching. They organized awareness events, kept in contact with investigators, and built networks with other families facing similar losses. Every new lead, no matter how small, was pursued. Every possible sighting was checked. But the truth remained elusive. The silence surrounding Lisa's fate grew heavier with time, pressing down on those who loved her. By the early 2010s, nearly a decade after her disappearance, the investigation had produced little more than frustration. The Red Jaguar had been examined and re-examined. The driver had been questioned repeatedly. Search efforts had combed remote areas of Vancouver Island, but no trace of Lisa was ever found. Officially, her case remained open. Unofficially, it hovered in that limbo between hope and resignation, a mystery without resolution. For the city of Nanaimo, Lisa's disappearance became part of its shadowed history. The bars she had danced in, the streets she had walked, and the neighborhoods she had called home all bore the weight of her absence. For her family, the passing years did not bring closure, only a sharper pain, knowing that time was slipping away without answers. And yet, even in the quiet, her story endured. Lisa Marie Young was not forgotten. Her image continued to appear in news reports, vigils continued to draw crowds, and her name remained etched into the collective memory of the community. The mystery was not just about a missing woman. It was about the silence of a city, a system, and a truth that remained just out of reach.